The call ended, and I completely lost control, throwing myself onto the bed, convulsing like a dying fish. The whole night, I was restless, neither sitting nor standing. As the time for Nicholas to return home approached, I became more and more anxious. I even started to fidget on the sofa, thinking about what posture I should use to greet him when he comes home, so as not to appear abrupt. Ding! Wisnovel reminds you to click the subscribe button in the bottom right corner to read the complete novel. The sound of a car horn suddenly came from downstairs. He's back? I leaped up from the sofa, running around like a headless fly. When the bedroom door was completely pushed open, I was lying on the bed in a very peaceful position. Nicholas paused for a moment, hesitating slightly. Sleeping so early? I turned my head and glanced at the clock on the wall. Damn, it's only 8:30. No, I just lay down, haha. God knows how embarrassed I am right now. He pursed his lips and smiled, without saying anything, then turned and went to the bathroom. After a while, the sound of rushing water came from the bathroom. The time waiting for him to take a shower was like slow torture and torment for me. Just as I was frantically pacing around for 10 minutes, Nicholas opened the bathroom door. I looked over at the sound, and in an instant, we locked eyes and fell silent. In my gaze, Nicholas still had wet hair, and although his bathrobe was tightly fastened, a glimpse of his firm and fair chest could still be seen. I quietly swallowed my saliva and discreetly looked away. Let's go to sleep. I spoke without thinking, but as soon as the words were out, I immediately regretted it. I sent this a blatant hint? What nonsense am I saying? But luckily, Nicholas didn't misunderstand, he just lightly agreed and went to blow dry his hair. I curled up in the corner of the bed like a quail, while secretly stealing glances at Nicholas blow drying his hair in the distance. I have to say, his figure is really good. I don't know what that woman was thinking, she had such a man and still ran away with someone else. But thanks to her running away, I was able to have the opportunity to be the CEO's wife. Why are you laughing? His voice suddenly rang out. I trembled all over, as if waking up from a dream, and only then realized that I had unconsciously laughed out loud. I tried to explain incoherently, but he seemed to have no intention of listening and walked towards me with large strides. Wait! Is it about to begin? The wedding night. I held my breath and focused, watching as Nicholas approached me, the sense of oppression rising from the soles of my feet. In an instant, we closed the distance between us, and then he bent down, getting closer to me. Is he going to kiss me? I sent this too sudden? Although I wasn't prepared, I closed my eyes with tact and my mouth trembling slightly. The air became quiet for 5 seconds, and then his voice sounded. Are you waiting for me to kiss you? I suddenly opened my eyes and saw that Nicholas had stood up straight, looking down at me with a slightly puzzled expression. No! I immediately denied, I didn't think so. How embarrassing! If there was a hole, I would definitely jump into it without hesitation. Nicholas sat down and opened his palm to reveal a wedding ring. This is a ring I bought a long time ago. It has always been under my pillow. Now, let me put it on you. I just noticed that the ring on his ring finger was the same as the one in his hand. It must have been prepared for that woman. But now, it belongs to me. I couldn't help but thank that woman who escaped at the last moment. After he put the wedding ring on me, he lifted my blanket and was about to lie down. I thought that with such a big villa, as contract spouses, we would definitely sleep in separate rooms in the end. But now, he was lying next to me, and I didn't even dare to make a sound. He was working, his fingers tapping on the laptop, occasionally glancing at me. Are you bored? He didn't even lift his head, softly asking me. With half of my face buried in the blanket, I replied. A little. Should we do something? As soon as the words left my mouth, I regretted it and wished I could bite my tongue and die. He must think I'm a dissolute and casual woman. His fingers paused. He closed the laptop and leaned over to look at me. What do you want to do? I clearly saw a slight smirk at the corner of his lips, a playful look in his eyes. What do I want to do? I started to stutter, my voice trembling. He pressed down on his body again, and the scent of his shower gel overwhelmed me. I felt like I was about to pass out. Why are you nervous? No, I'm not nervous. It's just business. I was trembling so much that my eyes started to feel hot. Who wouldn't be nervous? How could I suddenly engage in such an act with a stranger? Absolutely absurd. Well, I can't avoid the inevitable. I closed my eyes, gritted my teeth, and prepared for everything. His hand slowly reached my waist, and I gritted my teeth, enduring in silence, waiting for his next move. I woke up and found that it was already afternoon. The scenes from last night were still vividly replaying in my mind. In the end, Nicholas only pinched my waist and said, "I won't tease you anymore." Then he turned over and fallen asleep. At that moment, I was nervous, but I also felt a sense of relief. However, what I felt even more was regret. I quickly got up and planned to go to the mall to splurge with the card that Nicholas gave me. However, my excitement was dampened by a call from Secretary Walsh. "Madam, Mr. Moore asked me pick you up. He said there is a small gathering tonight that he wants you to attend." Before I could respond, Secretary Walsh ended the conversation. "I'll be waiting for you downstairs." Before long, a stylist arrived to transform me. I went from being a plain Jane to a rising female star. On the way, Secretary Walsh hurriedly reminded me of the things to pay attention to at the party. It can be summed up in 4 words: speak less and smile more. After he escorted me into the banquet hall, he received a phone call and left in a rush. This was the first time in my life that I had seen such a grand occasion. Looking around, I saw a sea of glamorous and successful people. They were dressed in suits and elegant dresses, as if they were born to be noble, enjoying the success that ordinary people could never achieve in their lifetime. I stood there dumbfounded, feeling a bit uneasy. After looking around for a while, I still didn't see Nicholas's figure. "Are you Nicholas's new wife?" A voice came from behind me. I turned around and saw a stunning woman staring at me with hostility. "Who are you?" The woman replied with a raised eyebrow. "You don't even know who I am?" I felt embarrassed and didn't know how to respond. "If it wasn't for you, I would be the one marrying Nicholas." She gritted her teeth, her expression fierce. My heart suddenly sank. Could she be the woman who was engaged to Nicholas, but ran away? And now she's back? Could it be that she regretted her decision? So what? The person he married is not you, but me. I clenched my teeth and tried to act tough. She clenched her fists and raised her voice. "You bitch, don't think you can steal him away from me. I warn you, leave Nicholas." Her shouting didn't have much impact on me, but soon, more and more people's attention started to focus on me. I felt like I was standing naked in a plaza, being scrutinized by everyone. I was both embarrassed and angry. She, who didn't keep her promise, had no right to accuse me. Don't think that climbing up the ladder will turn you into a phoenix. A chicken is still a chicken, even if it marries Nicholas Moore. It can't change the fact that you're just a chicken. The woman in front of me continued to insult me, and I became so angry that my breathing became difficult. My vision blurred, and all I could see was her vicious expression. "I'll kill you." I screamed and rushed towards her, biting her shoulder. "Help! Let go of me!" The scene quickly descended into chaos, with several media outlets rushing over, snapping photos. Before long, I tasted blood in my mouth. Determined, I bit down even harder. The woman screamed even louder, unable to maintain her balance and stumbling a few steps before falling to the ground. I followed her and continued to bite and claw at her. "Irene." It was Nicholas's voice. I loosened my grip, and instantly my whole body stiffened. It felt like a string in my heart had been forcefully snapped, sending shivers down my spine. This time, it seems like I'm really finished. Nicholas lifted me up, and without saying a word, he pulled me towards the exit of the hall. The woman on the ground continued to cry and scream. "Nicholas, you owe me an apology. Why didn't you marry me? Why?" He held my hand and walked faster, heading towards the parking lot, the silence between us becoming increasingly terrifying. I knew I had done something wrong, embarrassed Nicholas. Now I could only hang my head and follow him, not saying a word. This is how life works, with its ups and downs. Just when I was basking in the joy of a new marriage, I found out that my fiancé was cheating. Before I could even mourn, I was offered a chance to marry with a billionaire. But the thing is, I just got married yesterday, and I'm afraid today I'll be kicked out with a divorce paper. The more I thought about it, the more wronged I felt. I couldn't hold back my emotions any longer and started sobbing quietly. "If you want to hit me, go ahead, it's my fault," I cried, speaking between sobs. Finally, Nicholas stopped and turned to look at me. I was so aggrieved that I couldn't care about anything anymore. "I know I've embarrassed you. But it was that woman who went too far. It was her who didn't want to marry you, so how could she accuse me of stealing you? I admit that you've given me a lot of money, but I'm also a decent person. I'll return all the money to you, and let's get a divorce." The air fell silent, with only the sound of my embarrassing sobbing. "Irene Wright, you're really foolish." His description of me made me cry even louder. Nicholas finally lost his patience and pushed me against the wall behind me, covering my mouth with his mouth. In an instant, my brain shut down, leaving only shock. His face was so close, every breath I took mingled with his. What was he doing? Was he kissing me? Realizing this, I started desperately pounding on him. At this moment, I truly experienced the vast difference in strength between men and women. With just one hand, he easily restrained both of my hands, while the other hand held my restless face. Being divorced was one thing, but in the end, I was forcibly kissed. Thinking about this made me even more aggrieved, and tears streamed down my face as I cried brokenly. Seeing me cry even harder, he immediately let go of me. He looked panicked, his hands cupping my face. "Stop crying, it's my fault." I cried even more uncontrollably, but Nicholas pulled me into his arms. In a daze, I heard him say, "Irene, are you really that clueless, or are you pretending?" Throughout the journey, I kept my head turned towards the window while Nicholas drove silently. The atmosphere felt somewhat eerie. I was the one who made the mistake, but now I was actually angry with him. No matter what, I shouldn't have started a fight. "I'm sorry." We spoke in unison and then fell silent at the same time. Nicholas pulled over to the side of the road, turned to look at me. "I lost control just now. Did I hurt you?" I pressed my finger against my lips, feeling the hot sensation, and my lips felt a bit numb. "It's my fault for ruining your party and causing you embarrassment in front of the media. You should clarify with the reporters that you don't know me. It would be better for you." He laughed in frustration and even pinched his eyebrows twice. Then, he unbuckled his seatbelt, opened the car door, and headed straight for the passenger seat. I watched as he opened the door, bent down, and effortlessly lifted me up in his arms. I was too scared to say anything, so I tightly held onto his suit jacket. But then I remembered that his clothes were expensive, so I silently let go. Nicholas carried me to the nearest hotel and then bought iodine antiseptic at the supermarket downstairs. It was then that I noticed that the woman had scratched several wounds on my body. The cold medicine seeped into the wounds, and a burning pain spread, making me gasp for breath. Seeing me in pain, he intentionally slowed down his movements, and his actions of wiping the wounds became gentler. I used to have a bad temper and was a lonely child, so I didn't have many friends growing up. He said as he applied the medicine. I was puzzled by his sudden mention of the past, but I didn't interrupt and just listened to him continue. Being bullied by classmates was a common occurrence, but I was an orphan without parents to support me, so I always silently endured it and dealt with it myself. I was suddenly stunned. When we first met, he had said that he didn't cancel the wedding because he was afraid of worrying his elderly parents. He was an orphan. So, he had been lying to me from the very beginning? But he didn't give me a chance to explode and continued speaking. Later, I was once again pushed into the school pool by a group of people. But what was different that day was that a little girl jumped in to save me. She couldn't swim, and in the end, it took all my strength to pull her out. She was a chubby little girl back then. Instantly, familiar memories rushed into my mind uncontrollably. The incident of me jumping into the pool to save someone when I was young was vividly playing before my eyes. The face of that young boy from back then overlapped with Nicholas, who is currently applying medicine for me. Could it really be him? He finished putting on the band-aids for me and looked up at me. That little girl was named Irene Wright. That night, Nicholas said a lot of things. He spoke for a full 6 hours, slowly and deliberately, as if telling someone else's story. After I bravely saved him once, he remembered me completely. But I, in my carelessness, never noticed that there had been a pair of eyes watching me in the darkness for so many years. He followed my footsteps through middle school, high school, and even university. He would introduce me to astronomy, which I liked, and understand the gossip from the novels I was obsessed with. He would even try the snack I loved the most. He could easily talk about the things I was most crazy about in a certain era, but I had long forgotten them. In the end, he remained calm and cheerful, while I was moved to tears. I never thought I could have such an honor. It turns out that he had always been a part of my life, and everything had its traces. His online nickname was Ice Cube, which I called him when I first saved him, annoyed by his cold attitude. The post in his social media saying I want to die was simply because I got engaged to my ex-boyfriend that day. He was in a hurry to register and have a wedding because he wanted to become my legal husband as soon as possible. And he didn't actually have any fiancé, it was all made up by him. Even today's party was specially arranged by him to publicly announce to the media that I am his wife. As for that woman, she was just a terrifying pursuer. It was not a coincidence, but a long-planned secret love by him. I was angry and cried and laughed. Why didn't you say it earlier? You are so handsome, I would definitely agree. His eyes dimmed, and he lowered his head. I wanted to tell you, until one day in high school, I heard your friend ask about your ideal type. Do you know how you answered? I had no impression at all and shook my head. He smiled helplessly. At that time, you said it didn't matter as long as that person was not like you, an orphan. You said you wanted to have parents. He paused for a moment, his voice choked. Irene, I don't have parents. Your words are a barrier I can never cross in my life. And at that time, I didn't know that the words I blurted out had made Nicholas feel inferior for many years, and he didn't even have the courage to covet me. Do you know, when I found out you were engaged, I really had the heart to die. I even thought about eloping. He laughed with red eyes. And your post about Groom was my last straw. Irene, this time, I'm fighting for you regardless of the consequences. I cried bitterly, the late truth making my heart ache. Well, I don't want parents now. I want a tall, rich, and handsome man. I said, tears streaming down my face. He cried along with me, do you think I am one? I nodded frantically, I think you are. As the words fell, I buried myself in his arms, and he held me tightly, as if he wanted to merge me into his blood and bones. He leaned down and kissed my lips over and over again. Lost in emotions, he leaned close to my ear and whispered in a low, husky voice. Irene Wright, let's have a wedding. This time, I want to truly marry you and let everyone know. I held onto his neck, gasping for breath, and with a smile through my tears. I said, okay.